Caleb Jarreau joins us of offthehooksports.com because we've got some news on that Nico guy. Yes, we certainly do. So let's go ahead and get to that, as it will be I don't know that it's a biggest. Well, let me have you describe it. How big of a recruiting weekend is this for Tennessee? As I know that you have a Madden Iamaleva in town. So what do you got for me?
Yeah, Dave, I was hoping I was the favorite part of the show and not the prop bet, but I guess I'll still give you some recruiting information here.
You're very close second.
Compared to some SEC weekends, I don't think this is as big of a recruiting weekend, but you still have some guys coming through. Like you mentioned, Nico's little brother, Danny Okoye. He'll be here this weekend watching. He actually holds offers from Tennessee and UTSA, uniquely enough. So he'll be in attendance, and I'm sure he'll want to see some offensive firepower, and I'm sure he'd like to see his little brother get in the game as well.
Okay, now I want to ask you about some guys individually, but who else do you know or think or expect? It's fluid with football Fridays, but who else do you expect on campus for the UTSA game?
Yeah, so this weekend, like you said, it is fluid, but off the top, you've got a 2025 safety, George Young. He's out of Monroe, North Carolina. He's a 4-star prospect. He holds over 20 offers, including Tennessee and Alabama. Right down the road, he's been a frequent visitor to Duke in North Carolina. But that's a 6-foot safety, and we know good and well how much that defense values depth. So he's expected to visit this weekend. I'm sure Willie Martinez is still trying to build up the depth in his secondary. We saw that it's still not where you want it to be. We also got a defensive lineman, Isaiah Campbell, out of Durham, North Carolina. He's another top 100 recruit, 4-star prospect in the 2025 class. So that's a 6'4", 260-pound defensive lineman. And you basically see the defensive side of the ball getting emphasized by this recruiting class and by the coaches right now. And I don't see why else you wouldn't have it that way, because the defense has not lived up to expectations. And we saw that against Florida. And kind of to wrap up the defensive side, you've got a cornerback, Dre Fulbright, 2025 guy, 5'11", 160 pounds. He's a 3-star or lower ranked guy, but he does hold offers from Kentucky, Georgia, and Southern California. So I feel like if those schools saw something in him, then it's no surprise that Tennessee wants to get him on campus and talk to him as well.
Jarreau, on a broader scale, just to talk about Florida real quick. Last week, last year the South Carolina loss really wrecked Tennessee in recruiting. That's how they lost out on Mazio Bennett and a couple other guys. Do you think the Florida loss potentially is having the same impact, or is it not as big of a deal because they're not exactly targeting too many of the same people?
I also think it helps, on top of them not targeting a lot of the same people, it helps that it was so early in the year. So we're talking about this Florida loss right now, but think we get to December, that might be the only loss on Tennessee's record, and prospects aren't looking at that as much. So that's one thing. And another thing, like you said, is we're kind of late in this recruiting class. And there are some guys that they're both recruiting, like Cameron McHale, who I'm sure we'll talk about later. And I think that might lead an impact, but I don't think it'll be as amplified as what we saw with South Carolina. Especially with South Carolina, you mentioned Mazio Bennett. He was a guy who was already kind of on the fence. And then he went to that game and watched Tennessee get beat by the schools who he was thinking about flipping to, and it was kind of just like the nail in the coffin for him. So I don't think we'll see the effect as much, but really, you never know. If these plays out, we'll definitely find out more.
There's some guys I want to specifically ask you about that I know that you've been all on top of. So let's start with Daniel Hill. What can you tell me about Daniel Hill?
Yeah, so Daniel Hill is a guy who's expected to take an official visit next weekend to Tennessee. He's a running back that they have been high on out of Floridian, Mississippi. He's got a good relationship with Jerry Mack. Some other schools that are high in his recruitment as well are Alabama and South Carolina. So there are some big dogs fighting for him right now. And Tennessee's going to get an official visit, and that's big. Get him on campus, show him the campus. It'll be an SEC game. It'll also be a game against South Carolina, one of the schools recruiting him, so that can be a big win right there. But, he's a 4-star running back, top 200 prospect, 6'1", 220-pound guy. They're looking for another running back to pair with Peyton Lewis in the 2024 class, and they've kind of locked in after Arkansas picked up the other running back thereafter. They've locked in on Daniel Hill to be that guy that can complement Peyton Lewis in the 24 class. So his recruitment will probably be one that goes down to the wire, which I feel like the longer it goes, if Tennessee can even get him on campus the second time, it would would help their odds with him. But he's expected to take an official visit next weekend and kind of round out a weekend. With next weekend will be a lot bigger than this one, and we'll have a couple of official visits as well. So he's a running back they want to pair with Peyton Lewis, and he's a guy that they probably have a shot at, and they're taking a big swing for sure.
And then Cameron Michael or Mikel, can you pronounce his last name? And I do apologize for some of those that are saying we're having audio issues. This is our first time trying this. So let me know on the message board how it's going. I think we've got it all worked out now. But tell me about Cameron.
Yeah, so I want to say it's Mikel. I could be wrong with that as well. But he's a 6'1" athlete who probably projects as a receiver. And he's a guy out of South Georgia. He's a 4-star. He will be taking an official visit next weekend as well, alongside Daniel Hill that we just mentioned. But he projects as a wide receiver. His relationship with Kelsey Pope is really good right now. And that's another spot in the 2024 class that they're still trying to shore up as well. You have guys like Ryan Wingo who are kind of still on the fence, or uncommitted, or trending toward Georgia. And Mikel is a guy that they can take a swing at. He's from Georgia. He's crystal balled to Georgia as well. So getting him on campus, getting an official visit, kind of letting him see campus and talking to him will be very big in their attempt to keep him or get him out of Georgia into East Tennessee.
Jarreau, earlier in the week, Tennessee lost out on edge rusher Danny Okoye, who committed to Oklahoma. I think that was largely expected. He's from Tulsa, so I understand it. And Tennessee's loaded at edge rusher. But is this a sign of things to come? Is it a concern, or is Tennessee still in pretty good shape, and this is just something that what they really were never in the running for to begin with?
So he's kind of a unique circumstance. He's a guy from northern Oklahoma. He's homeschooled in northern Oklahoma. Tennessee was probably, I think it's safe to say, they were leading for him probably from this time last year to about a month ago. But that's because he didn't give Brent Venables a chance at Oklahoma. So once he took his official visit to Oklahoma, he realized how much different Brent Venables was from Lincoln Riley. Those were his words. He said that when he visited, Lincoln Riley never even interacted with the recruits on the visit. But when he went, Venables was with him kind of the whole time on his official visit with high energy, kind of kept the energy up and with a lively attitude. I think it also helps that Venables is a defensive guy and Heupel is an offensive guy, and you're talking about a recruitment for an edge rusher. So realistically, I don't think it was anything Tennessee did as much as Brent Venables being a lot different from Lincoln Riley and kind of putting Oklahoma back in that recruitment. Because it was his in-state school right down the road, I think an hour or so from where he lived. So it's hard to compete with that. So like you said, Calhoun, I don't think it's as much of a concern. I think it's more of an isolated case where it was an Oklahoma guy who visited Oklahoma and decided he wanted to stay in-state. Not so much what Tennessee did. And they are loaded at edge rusher. I mean, your top recruit in this class is Jordan Ross, a 5-star edge rusher. So you also have that going for you. And as long as you keep him locked up to the end of the cycle, I don't think there's much concern in that position.
Caleb, great stuff. We look forward to your continued coverage on Off the Hook Sports, and have a fantastic day, sir.
Yep, y'all as well. See you later.
Thanks, buddy. He mentions Jordan Ross already a commitment. And Caleb, listen, you'd love to have Okoye and Ross, but if you had to pick between the two, I'll take the higher rated guy that's out of the center of the Southeast, and that is Alabama. So I would take Jordan Ross. No question about it. If I had to pick
I would. I agree. Losing out on an edge rusher like Danny Okoye, even if he was looking at Tennessee, is not a big deal because of how loaded they are at the edge rusher position and who they have committed. And look, we've talked about it, not even in this class. I think they have 3 edge rushers in this class, most notably Jordan Ross. But you're talking Joshua Joseph and James Pierce on this team. They still got at least another year on the team, maybe 2, both of them. So if you're a 3-star edge rusher, you're going to be buried in the depth chart if you go to Tennessee right now.